Today's agenda is, so we're going to talk about today counting numbers and whole numbers. So what is the difference between, like, we hear this a lot in math classes, and so let's see what is the difference between these two kind of numbers, types of numbers. So then we're going to talk about classroom expectation. It's only for hybrid students, which means the students in this classroom, not the ones on the online. So online students can leave when we start talking about classroom expectations. And there is an exit ticket. It's only 3 questions, 1 reflection, 2 math question, I would say. So this is all we're going to do today, okay? And today's objective is, I hope at the end of the lesson, you need to say that I can tell the difference between counting and whole numbers. This is our goal for this lesson. And we finished the do now. So let's talk about what is a counting number. And the other name is like you may see as a natural numbers. So basically the counting numbers are the numbers that you count things. Like the first numbers developed in a history. So everybody says like, who invented math? Like, so actually math didn't invent it. Like it started with like inventing numbers. It didn't like suddenly come up like adding numbers. So first thing, they invented the numbers. So how they invented the numbers? So like to count things, objects, like let's say if you're in the farm, like in the back in the history, if you want to count some things like goats or anything in the farm, so they count the objects like starting at 1, 2, 3. So these are the first math like came in the history, like counting numbers. Okay, so and in math, like you will see 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5, and at the end you're going to see like these 3 dots. What does that mean? That 3 dots means like this numbers goes forever. Because if I don't have enough space, I mean I do have, but not enough space to write it down every single number that like exists. So that's why we put like 3 dots to indicate that that number goes forever. Okay, so and because of numbers go up to the forever, there is a no largest number. Nobody can tell this is the largest number. Okay, and so the reason why invented numbers is to count the objects and how they count them. Like for example, if you put the like these, what is this? I forgot. I know in Turkish how to say it's bilya, but in English, what do you say this object? Marbles. Marbles, thank you. So when you count the marbles, for example, every time when you put in the jar, you say it like you count them. So this is why we need the counting numbers, okay? So if you look at this picture, I found it on the internet, like this is the proof that numbers are invented 35,000 years ago. It's very old. Okay, so in the early like human being, like when they count things, like they started to cut the bones or any sticks to indicate the number of things. So they all use them for counting, and so there is a 29 counts. Somebody measured it, and of course, when you have a things, you need to play with it, right? For example, when we have a numbers, we need to play with it. For example, the first playing numbers with like adding things, like when you put them together, you need to say how many. So this is the first action about in math, like they invented the addition. I know we're going very back in the history, but it's better to know the history of math a little bit. So it's like counting goats or apples or bottles, etc. So this is why we need counting numbers. And adding means like when you put things together, the answer for how many. Okay, so these are the actions. Like they didn't say in early history saying like what happens if you add them all. They just say like drop like stones in a jar or in one spot, so you can see how many it looks like. Okay, so how they record them, that's very like interesting. For example, in our life right now, like we have a papers and pens, right? When you want to record something, we're writing down on a paper. But in history, like they were recording it like collecting things, like in a container, or like putting sticks like on a hand. How many sticks I have? Like 20. So this is 20. So they didn't know about those like 1, 2 like symbols. Okay. So now let's talk about the whole numbers. Counting numbers is very obvious, as you can see. It's just starting at 1, 2, 3, and goes forever. But the whole numbers is there is a tiny detail you need to know about this. If you add 0 to the counting numbers, like counting numbers starting at 1, if you put 0 in that collection, we call those numbers whole numbers. That's the difference. That's today's objective. Okay. So look at this. The counting numbers starting at 1. If you put the 0 in that collection, so we call this whole numbers. Okay. And so counting numbers were developed more than 35,000 years ago, but 0 is invented like 1,000 years ago. So after 34,000 years ago, 0 invented, which is like very a long time. So it's very new actually, the number 0. Okay. Yeah. This is the oldest known use of 0, the dot, about 1,500 years ago. So this is the first invention about 0. I know this is a history, but if you can click this, it'll take a link, like a article. You can read about this. So this is the proof of like inventing 0. The point is like you only remember like this. The 0 is invented very like close history, the history that 1,000 years ago, not that much far away. Okay, so it founded in Cambodia, and now we're going to start talking about classroom expectations. So for online students, you can read the slides and you don't have to stay on the whole session. Okay, at the end of these slides, you're going to see the exit ticket. So it would be better if you can finish that exit ticket too, because it's part of your participation grade. Okay, I'm going to close the Zoom session now for online students because I need to talk about these expectations with hybrid students. If you have any questions, you can write it down in the chat box or you can email me.